are broadcasting live. Mark Kaye Saves the Republic from Mar-a-Lago, where, by the way, we're selling. This is the I don't know if you remember this, but it was 3 years ago today that the FBI under Joe Biden was weaponized against President Donald Trump, and they hightailed it to Mar-a-Lago. And they busted in and they ravaged President Donald Trump's home, and they went through his wife's underwear drawer, and they did all these unspeakable things to her, unmentionables. And it was 3 years ago. I couldn't even believe it. It was one of the worst. It was one of the worst weaponizations of any one of our agencies ever. And it was Joe Biden, and Joe Biden was using the power of the presidency, the power of the Department of Justice, to try and jail and intimidate a rival. Donald Trump at that point was running for president, and it was really disgusting to see. But everyone came out okay. Melania Trump, you may remember, talked about it in this interview shortly afterward.
House manager texts you and says the FBI is outside the house. They had access to my bedroom, closets, office, and rummaged through my personal items. Even searched Barron's room, you say. So how invasive was that? Did it make you angry? How did you feel?
Yeah, it made me angry. Yes. Invasion of privacy. And the way it was done I was really surprised.
You wanted to see it for your own eyes. With your own eyes, what did it look like when you walked back in your house that had been raided?
I saw unpleasant stuff that nobody wants to see it. And you get angry because, nobody should be putting up with that kind of stuff. Some person, I don't even know who or how many people, they went through my stuff.
Yeah, and nobody should be putting up with that, especially not Melania Trump, author of Melania, wife to President Donald Trump. And look at that. I mean, I think that was one of the deciding factors for a lot of people. In fact, as we traveled around during the election, as we traveled around in 2024, and I was a lot of places, I was talking to a lot of folks, and so many people told me when they saw what happened at Mar-a-Lago with the FBI raiding Donald Trump's establishment, and the whole thing was, it was an intimidation. 100%. They knew. They'd already been to Mar-a-Lago. They'd already had their lawyers talking to Donald Trump's lawyers. They knew where the documents in question were, but they wanted to make Donald Trump feel like a criminal. They wanted everybody else in the world to think he was a criminal. So they sent their investigatory unit to bust into his home. They threw his lawyers out. Told his lawyers, hey, they wanted him to turn off the cameras too. Tell me you're doing an illegal search. Tell me you're weaponizing the government without telling me you're weaponizing the government. That's exactly what happens. That's exactly what happens when you weaponize the FBI against somebody. You're like, the first thing we need to do is turn off those cameras. And they're like, we are 100% not going to do that, because that definitely cries foul. Look, we've got a lot to talk about today. First of all, it is Cha-Ching Chat Friday. And you may be asking yourself, Mark, hey, what the heck is a Cha-Ching Chat? Well, I'm glad you asked. If you are on YouTube, they call it a super chat. If you're on Rumble, we like to call it a Rumble rant. If you're anywhere else, we like to call it just tossing cash at the show to support Mark Kaye in any way, shape, or form that you can. If you want, you go to markkforcongress.com too, and you can Cha-Ching Chat us there. But when you offer up your Cha-Ching Chat, we will read your comment, whatever it is, whatever you write. We're gonna read it on the show. We're gonna read it live on the podcast. Whatever it is you put in the Cha-Ching Chat or the super chat or the Rumble rant, you're gonna get it read out by moi. You could put in your Instagram handle, your Twitter feed, your website, whatever it is, some message to your sweetheart, whatever. It's kind of lame, but you could do that too. And as long as it's $5 or more in the Cha-Ching Chat, you'll get it read on our special Cha-Ching Chat Friday edition of Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. Also, don't forget to subscribe, because subscribing is that's one of the best ways to make sure that you're getting all of our content wherever you happen to be. Whether you're on Spotify watching us on video, which is now available, or if you're listening on iTunes, which has been available for years, or if you're on YouTube or Facebook, wherever you happen to be, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you're getting the notifications so that you can always get Mark Kaye Saves the Republic and all related Mark Kaye Saves the Republic material. One big announcement. You may notice there's a new sign behind me. The yard signs came in for our Mark Kaye for Congress event, which is coming. This event, by the way, man, it's going to be huge. It's going to be huge. One of the groups in St. Augustine that I talked to, that I've spoken with a couple times, Diane, who's in charge of it, she said, hey, we were going to have a meeting on Monday, August 18th, but I canceled it and I told everyone just to go to your event instead. Wow. And I was like, wow, thank you. And then all of a sudden she sent out an email and lo and behold, there it was saying, hey, everybody go to Mark Kaye's event at Sneakers. We've got over 200 people who have already said, yes, I'm coming, or yes, I'm thinking about coming, or following along on the page. It's at Sneakers Sports Grill. And these came in yesterday. So these are the official yard signs, right? These are the Mark Kaye for Congress yard signs. They say Mark Kaye for Congress, paid for by Mark Kaye for Congress. And it's a fish. You can see it's got my name real big. I wanted my name real big so that, because that's the important thing. People need to know who they're voting for. And then, you know, what you're voting for. So it's Mark Kaye for Congress. And I feel that's really all, you know, like we went back and forth with a couple people. A couple people were like, you should put Florida's 5th district. And I was like, you know, I really feel like if you I want them to walk into the voting booth and I want them to see my name, Mark Kaye for Congress. And I want them to just put a check mark by it or fill it in or tap it on the computer, whatever. So these are the yard signs. We have 100 of them. Only 100. These are the first 100 yard signs. And if you come out to this event at Sneakers on August 18th, starting at 6 p.m., and you're a registered Republican, we're going to give the first 100 registered Republicans on site one of these yard signs. And then you can go and stick it in your yard. And you can, stick it in your yard, stick it in your, the preference is you stick it in your yard. That way everybody driving by your house can see it, especially if you live on like a busy road. If you live on a busy, that's what we want. Well, if you live in like a cul-de-sac, that's fine too. We're not going to Google map your house and make sure you're in a, although maybe we should be like, you know what? You're not in a high visibility area. We're on limited resources here. We are a grassroots campaign. So I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to give you a yard sign. No, we're going to give you a yard sign. I don't care if you live out in the sticks. You're entitled to a yard sign. And like I said, if you want to come to the event is at Sneakers. There's a Facebook page. You can just go to it's my Facebook page. And then there's an event. You can go here. You can get all the details. Monday, August 18th, 6 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be so much fun. Like so much fun. If you've never been to a Mark Kaye rally, well, that's everybody because we've never had actually a Mark Kaye rally, but they are so much fun. It's like this show, but live. And we're going to talk about politics, and we're going to talk about what we need to do when we get to Congress, and we're going to talk about John Rutherford and the damage that he's done to it's so funny. I guess he's got his friends out on our Facebook page making comments now on our content because, I guess that's what he does. I think his brother-in-law is out there trying to troll me on Facebook. So it's getting heated. Now we're getting to him. It used to be I would post stuff about John Rutherford or my campaign on Facebook, and then people would just be like, "Yay, Mark Kaye!" Now you're getting John Rutherford people commenting back, and that's when you're really getting his goat, which I love. So I'm really thrilled about that, and that party's going to be amazing. And like I said, we only have 100 of these yard signs, and we're bringing all 100. Maybe 99 because maybe I need to keep one. No, you know what? I said 100. I'm going to bring out 100. I'll order myself one. Also, hats. People were asking about the hats. We're going to have the white Mark Kaye for Congress hats there too for purchase or when you make a donation. Because again, we're trying to build up our coffers as much as possible. But it's so funny because Congress is on vacation. And what do people do on vacation? Well, they drink. And Nancy Pelosi clearly has been enjoying her vacation in the way that you would expect Nancy Pelosi to do because she's a congresswoman and she's not going back to work until September the 2nd. And so she's in San Francisco and she sounds like either she's drunk or old or both. She's either drunk or old but she could be drolled. That's what it is. She's drolled. she's because she can barely think and speak, and they asked her about transgender affirming surgery and I don't know if she didn't know what to say or didn't have anything to say or didn't want to say, look, I have no power anymore. I'm kind of just a figurehead. Also, I don't care. I'm rich. I'm old. I'm just, sitting out here trying to enjoy my martini. But this was Nancy Pelosi yesterday in California prattling on, about gender-affirming care.
How is your office responding to the pauses in gender-affirming care here in California?
Well, that is something that I'm working for at the national level, and we have, are hoping that we can have gender-affirming care. For our trans kids. and that it's a sad thing for us. I'm not totally. I don't know what effect we can have nationally with what we have going on in the White House and in the Congress. It's really very sad. If you were there, outside our door, we have a trans flag. Outside of our door in the office, congressional office building, we have the trans flag, as do some of our other colleagues. But that view is not necessarily shared by people on the other side of the aisle.
I mean, is it me or is she getting worse? Is she just getting worse? Is that the dementia creeping in? We have the trans flag. We have what? By the way, what's the trans flag? Is that the LGBTQ thing? Is that, I know that there's because there was the rainbow flag, which was the LGBTQ flag, and then they added those weird triangle things to it, which I think that's all the trans stuff. I'm not really sure. I don't really know. I don't follow all that. I just, what I know? I know the American flag, and I know the Florida flag, and I know, that's all. I'll be honest with you, I really care about. But yeah, the trans flag waves outside of her office, but she's trying to do something on the federal level, but she realizes she can't. And she basically said, we can't do anything about it because of Donald Trump. Did you catch that part?
How is your office responding to the pauses in gender affirming care here in California?
Well, that is something that I'm working for at the national level, and we have, how can I say, are hoping that we can have gender affirming care for our trans kids, and that it's a sad thing for us. I'm not totally. I don't know what effect we can have nationally with what we have going on in the White House and in the Congress.
What that means is we've got Donald Trump in the White House, we've got Republicans in Congress, so we can't. I don't know what we can do. She's basically saying I'm helpless. She's basically saying, why do you think I'm sitting here in the middle of the day drinking? Why do you think I'm sitting here day drinking in the middle with my hair blowing all over the place like it's cray cray? Why do you think I'm here? Because there's nothing for me to do in Congress. We have no power in Congress. We have no power in the White House. Donald Trump and Mike Johnson and the Republicans in the Congress and the majority in the Senate, they control everything. And with all this redistricting going on, it looks like we're probably going to lose even more seats, which may not be. We're going to, who's going to lose his seat with this Texas redistricting? Al Green. Remember Al Green? Remember Al Green, who waved his cane in the air? Waving cane, Al Green, who waved his cane at President Donald Trump during the State of the Union address. He's going to lose his seat when this redistricting goes through, because they're going to make sure that district is no longer viable. A bunch of others with Jasmine Crockett, who, oh, by the way, I don't know if you heard this. This is delicious. Let me pull this up. Jasmine Crockett, now that she's, I guess, I don't know, maybe it's because she knows she's about to lose power, or because they know they're about to lose power. But Nick Sorter posted this on his X, and this is the most believable thing I've ever read on the internet. This is the most believable thing I'm going to read this to you because, it just goes. Nick Sorter writes, just in, multiple staffers, meaning more than one, multiple staffers have turned against Jasmine Crockett, accusing her of being a no-show boss from hell. Per New York Post. A no-show boss from hell. Now, think about that. She doesn't show up, but she's a boss from hell. What does that mean? It means when she do show up, she's a raving lunatic B-word. Then he writes, LMAO. She is never in the this is a quote, by the way, from one of the anonymous staffers. She is never in the office and is very disengaged. She does her bull stuff that goes viral and then freaks out over the most random things, a former aide said. She is laying around her apartment, won't come into the office, and is really just indifferent to staff and will scream at them, another aide said. A third aide added, she is focused almost exclusively on being an influencer, not a member of Congress. Crockett also demands to be driven around in the back seat of an Escalade anytime she's in Washington, requiring a staffer to wait hours next to the car just to be ready to open the door for her. Texas needs to get rid of this chick. Now, I've seen her. This is so funny because I've seen her in the car. Every now and then she'll do, well, because she's an influencer, basically, not a congressperson. So every now and then I'll see her. She's in the backseat of the limo, or what I thought was a limo. And she's sitting there on her phone and she's talking to whoever follows her. And I often wonder to myself, how is she in a limo? Why is she in a limousine? What does she do? How come she's always in the back of like a Lincoln Navigator or something like that? And apparently what's happening is she does that it's all part of her shtick. It's all part of the power principle. So she demands to be driven around in the back of an Escalade, and she requires a staffer to wait hours next to the car just to be ready to open the door for her. Now, then he added this clip of her screaming.
We're not going to do this. Look, you guys earlier literally just
you just voted to do it.
Y'all did it first, so you don't want to talk about
voted to do it.
Order.
I'm trying to get clarification.
Look, calm down. Calm down.
No, because this is what y'all do. So I'm trying to get
Miss
clarification.
Crockett, you're not recognized. Miss Crockett.
I can't hear you with your yelling.
Don't want
calm
me to
down.
Be,
Can you please calm down?
Don't tell me to calm down.
Calm down.
Because y'all talk noise, and then
You're
can't
out of
take
control.
Because if I
Chairman,
come and talk shit about her, y'all gonna have a problem.
We're not going to do this. Look, you guys.
I think that's Anna Paulina Luna. I think that's Anna Paulina Luna who's egging her on. But that, can you believe it? Can you believe that this woman, it just is a no-show boss from HE double hockey sticks? Is that not the craziest thing you've ever heard? Her staff now calling her out. By the way, here's the thing, because a lot of people say, Mark Kaye, when you get to Congress, are you going to do what are you going to just ride around in limousines? No, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be the Lime scooter guy. I'm not like, I like a good Escalade, with the rest of them. When I go to the airport, the airport pickup comes, they put you in a Lincoln or an Escalade or something like that. But no, day to day, I like to walk. And if it's a little too far, or if it's a little too hot, or if it's a little too cold, I'll hop on a Lime scooter. In fact, the best thing about, and if you don't know what a Lime scooter is, those are those electric scooters that you can just rent. You walk up to, and there's like 1,000 of them on the street. You walk up to whichever one is free and you scan it with your app, and it goes bring, and then you can get on, ride it to your destination. Wherever you go or wherever you stop, you just stop it, you turn it off, and then it goes, you've been charged $5. And I'm like, that's great. Great transportation, fun transportation, and affordable transportation. LimeScootersAreTheBomb.com. Also, when I was in DC the last time, you may remember I was introduced to the Lime bike because I went to the military parade. Remember Donald Trump had the military parade for his birthday in June? And he had all the military personnel there and the military equipment, and the military planes were flying around. We all lined the streets. Everyone was there to watch the military parade and celebrate Flag Day / Donald Trump's birthday. It was amazing. But afterward, there were like 1 million people all trying to get home, and there were no Lime scooters, but I stumbled across a Lime bicycle. And at first I thought, oh my God, I don't want to pedal. That's like work. But then I realized the Lime bicycles are also electric. So man, I hopped on a Lime bicycle and they go twice as fast as the scooters. And then I was like just riding around on a little mini motorcycle. It was incredible. I loved it. So I'm a Lime guy. And you're going to see, I guarantee, you're going to see articles or something or other when I get to Congress, because I guarantee I'm going to be the only congressman that shows up for work in a Lime scooter when all of these other clowns are showing up in Escalades and limousines. And Nancy Pelosi, even you saw, she gets a police escort. She has 3 people opening her door. She's got police escorts. She's got Escalades everywhere she goes. Again, she shouldn't be driving anyway because she's drunk and old. Is how we say drolled. All right, we got some big news about Letitia James, but before we get to that, we got some cha-chings coming in on this Cha-Ching Friday. Look at Margaret Olson over there on the YouTube. Margaret Olson dropped a $20 super chat. I'm sorry. That was my bad. Margaret Olson dropped a $20 cha-ching chat. Do I have a cha-ching sound effect? Hold on, maybe I may actually have one. I need to audit my sound effects because I don't know what I do and do not have. Do I have a cha-ching? I have, no, that is not a cha-ching. Is this a cha-ching? No, those are neither one of those are cha-chings. Is this a cha-ching?
I honored a group of trailblazing artists with National Medals of Arts and Humanities.
No, that is not.
The group includes...
That is not. All right, I'm gonna get a cha-ching. But Margaret Olson said, "Good luck, Mark. You rock. If I lived in Florida, I'd vote for you." Margaret, thank you very much, and thank you so much for your cha-ching tat, and we do appreciate you supporting the show and everything else that we do here on the daily. Let me go to. I think we got some on Rumble, man. We're getting a lot. Oh yeah, we're getting a lot of cha-ching chats on Rumble. We have one from Joe Biden's teleprompter. This is great. I'm Mark Kaye, and when I get to Congress, I'm going to pull up my G-string. My G-sting, and get to work. Remember Joe Biden's teleprompter? I said I would read it verbatim, so if you misspell it, that's how I'm going to read it. $5 cha-ching chat. Thank you very much. I'm Mark Kaye, and when I get to Congress, I'm going to pull up my G-sting and get to work. What else? We got some more here. Harley Quinzel. Look at this. TGIF. Next Friday, I will be in Florida on a beach with an alcoholic beverage in hand and avoiding sharks. Fight, Mark. Want to see you win. I hope Pevelosi would go to jail. Jail them all. Harley Quinzel, that is a very, very generous cha-ching chat. Oh, Joe Biden's teleprompter. Well, this is technically $1, but basically he corrected his grammar. I'm going to pull up my G-string and get to work when I go. Okay, good. So Joe Biden's teleprompter misspelled G-sting on his $5 cha-ching chat and then threw another buck in the pot to clarify. I love that. I'm a big fan of that. All right, so from now on, $5 minimum on the cha-ching chats if you want it read, but if you misspell a word and you want to correct it, then we'll let you go with $1. And then R. Lewis, 937. R. Lewis wrote, "Thanks for keeping us informed. Listening live, then again via podcast helps me be the smartest guy in the room." Couple of my favorite emojis. Terrific podcast, class 2. R. Lewis, 937. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you're listening to the podcast. You're watching the podcast. You're coming to Podcast Profits Live. I appreciate all of that great stuff. It's so great to have you. And of course, $20 cha-ching chat. Can't go wrong with that. Anyway, all right, let's get to Letitia James. Y'all remember Letitia James, New York Attorney General, who tried to put Donald Trump in the slammer for something he didn't do. Y'all remember her, right? And she said, no one is above the law. No one is above the law. She was the one. She wanted to take Donald Trump's buildings away from him. She wanted Donald Trump to go broke. She wanted Donald Trump to sell his buildings or give them over to New York City. And she wanted one, I think, for herself. I think she wanted a plush office in one of Donald Trump's luxury office towers down in the Battery area. Well, guess what? There is now a new probe, a new grand jury, a new task force investigating Letitia James. And Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, announced it yesterday. Here's the Fox News report.
Washington, what do you know, David?
Well, hi, Dana. Two well-placed sources familiar with the probe tell Fox News that New York Attorney General Letitia James and her office is under investigation by the DOJ here in Washington. We're told that Attorney General Pam Bondi signed off on the probe. Subpoenas were sent to James's office, and there is a grand jury investigation underway in the New York State capital of Albany. The specific investigation, my colleague Jake Gibson, Ashley Oliver, and myself are being told involves deprivation of rights, which in plain language means someone in a position of legal authority violating someone else's constitutional or legal rights. Those sources tell Fox News the DOJ is going after James because she took then former President Donald Trump to court, quote, simply because she didn't like him and campaigned on getting him. DOJ, led by Bondi, believes she violated his First Amendment rights dealing with free speech. James has said before she believed Trump inflated his net worth to get good deals on loans from lenders and other financial benefits. Ms. James won in a court judgment of over $450 million against the Trump Organization. Trump is appealing, and it's pending. The entire scope of the grand jury probe in Albany, Dana, is unclear. Grand juries are secretive, but we've learned from these well-placed sources it stems from a recent strike force set up inside the Justice Department to investigate an alleged plot to tie Trump to Russia in 2016. Sources say that strike force has expanded to other topics. Now, to recap, the Justice Department has initiated grand jury proceedings in Albany, New York, against the Empire State Attorney General General Letitia James. But remember, this is important. A grand jury simply decides if there's enough evidence to indict. To be clear, we are told this is very early in the process, and no one, as I speak to you right now, is facing any charges at this time. Fox News reached out to Attorney General James's office multiple times, but we've yet to hear back.
Oh, it's so interesting when the shoe's on the other foot, isn't it? It's so interesting when the karmic retribution comes and kicks you in the booty. And yes, there's no charges filed. Nobody has been indicted. But guess what a grand jury does? A grand jury decides if there is going to be charges filed. A grand jury says, yes, there is enough evidence here to initiate an indictment of this person for this particular crime. And typically, it's rare that you would go to a grand jury and give them evidence if you didn't believe you had enough evidence to prove a crime had been committed and indictments needed to come down. You would not go to a grand jury, at least you wouldn't if you're Pam Bondi and Donald Trump. And that's what the one thing we can say. I mean, there's a lot of things we can say about the Donald Trump administration. Heck, this has been the most amazing 200 days ever. Do you know it's been 200 days? 200 days. Donald Trump yesterday, it was 200 days in office. And I have to tell you, more accomplishments than most presidents could have in 200 years. More accomplishments than anyone could have in 200 years.
I want to thank everybody for being here on the 200th day in office. This is 200 days already. Time flies. But we have a country that's the hottest country right now anywhere in the world. A year ago, it was in a lot of trouble. It's the hottest country. And a lot of the people in this room made it that way. Perhaps the most successful and consequential first 200 days, they say, of an administration in history. So let's hope they keep saying it. There they are right there. I hope they keep saying it.
Now, the thing about President Donald Trump in his first 200 days, and the reason he's been so successful is because of his legal team and the lawyers at the DOJ and in the White House and really every single department. They know exactly when they go into something. They know exactly. They've mapped it out. They're 5 steps ahead. They know Donald Trump's going to make this particular executive order. Donald Trump's going to make this declaration. Donald Trump's going to do A. Donald Trump's going to cut the funding. Donald Trump's going to shut this down. Donald Trump's going to deport people. Whatever it is, they know there will immediately be a legal challenge. But they also know that they've dotted their I's and they've crossed their T's. And when you're looking at Letitia, there's a lot of I's and T's to dot and cross. But what they've done everything that they need to do, and they've gotten it right. And that's why Donald Trump wins so much, because he'll do something. There'll be an immediate suit filed. The judge will put on some kind of immediate, there'll be some kind of immediate order to stop. There'll be an injunction or whatever. But Donald Trump's legal team knows that they're always in the right, and they do everything so cleanly that inevitably down the road, when it gets to appeal, the appellate court pretty much 90% of the time turns it over. So Pam Bondi's not going to walk into, at least I hope not going to walk into a grand jury to bring an indictment against Letitia James if she doesn't think she has enough direct evidence to bring an indictment against Letitia James. She's not going to do that in Florida either. No one's going to do that, hopefully in the Donald Trump administration, because they've never shown that kind of disregard for the law ever. Here's an article from the New York Times, which I like to go to the New York Times because this all happens in New York. By the way, the Letitia James in this photo they chose is standing behind a banner that says "Protecting the People." The Justice Department has opened an investigation into one of President Trump's longtime adversaries, Attorney General Letitia James of New York, examining whether her office violated his civil rights in its successful fraud suit against him, according to 3 people with knowledge of the matter. The acting U.S. attorney in Albany sent Ms. James' office 2 subpoenas, one of which was related to the civil fraud case, which led to Mr. Trump being penalized more than $500 million. The second subpoena is related to the office's long-running case against the National Rifle Association, the people said. Ms. James sued the organization in 2020, winning the ouster of its longtime leader, Wayne LaPierre, and sharply diminishing its power. 2 of the people familiar with the matter said that the new subpoenas were part of a broader investigation to determine whether the office violated Mr. Trump's rights or those of others. It is highly unusual use of a civil rights law, more typically used to investigate potential racial, religious, or sex discrimination, among other categories. Basically, what they're saying is, if you're a white male, your civil rights can't be violated. If you're a white dude, if you're an old, rich white dude, they can't violate your civil rights. That's literally what the New York Times is saying here. It is a highly unusual use of a civil rights law more typically used to investigate potential racial, religious, or sex discrimination, among other categories. So white, Christian, rich, conservative men need not apply. The inquiry also appears to be an extraordinary example of federal intervention in state proceedings and another battle in Mr. Trump's escalating campaign against his nemesis. Ms. James has been one of Trump's fiercest opponents since she first ran for attorney general in 2018. The enmity, this is another problem with the New York Times. They use too many big words. You know, they say, if you really want to be successful, I'm going to give you a tidbit here. If you really want to be successful, if you want to sell a lot of books or sell a lot of whatever, if you want, you got to dumb it down. You got to be like on a 5th grade level. Enmity is not a 5th grade level word. That's why nobody reads the New York Times and everyone reads the New York Post. Instead, the enmity between Mr. Trump and Ms. James is longstanding. In 2022, she sued him, accusing him of overvaluing his assets by billions of dollars. Ms. James' lawyer Abe Lowell on Friday called any investigation in Mr. Trump's fraud case the most blatant and desperate example of this administration carrying out the president's political retribution campaign. This is where it gets really funny. Weaponizing the Department of Justice to try to punish an elected official for doing her job is an attack on the rule of law and a dangerous escalation of this administration. Weaponizing the Department of Justice to punish an elected official is a dangerous escalation. Gee, that's so funny because I know another guy who did exactly that 3 years ago today. If prosecutors carry out this improper tactic and are genuinely interested in the truth, we are ready and waiting with facts and law. I mean, it must be so hard. I don't know. These Democrats, I don't know if they like Crow because they're eating a whole lot of it. I don't know if the hypocrisy among this entire party is just crazy. Now that they realize that they're out of power, now that they realize they have nothing to no leg to stand on, they don't have any organizations to weaponize against anybody. They don't have the DOJ, they don't have the FBI, they don't have any of those things anymore that can come to their rescue. Now they're realizing, oh crap, we're being investigated for stuff we actually did. So they've got to scream, they've got to cry foul and say this is weaponization. You know what was weaponization? 3 years ago today, when Melania Trump, the former and current First Lady, had her underwear drawer ransacked by the FBI.
House manager texts you and says the FBI is outside the house. They had access to my bedroom, closets, office, and rummaged through my personal items. Even searched Barron's room, you say. So how invasive was that? Did it make you angry? How did you feel?
Yeah, it made me angry. Yes. Invasion of privacy. And the way it was done I was really surprised.
You wanted to see it for your own eyes. With your own eyes, what did it look like when you walked back in your house that had been raided?
I saw unpleasant stuff that nobody wants to see it. And you get angry because, nobody should be putting up with that kind of stuff. Some person, I don't even know who or how many people, they went through my stuff.
And that she means her personals. By the way, I love when Melania speaks. She needs to do more interviews. She needs to do more speeches. She's got a great voice, and she's just such a wonderful First Lady. We got to get her out more. Listen, yesterday, by the way, on the 200th anniversary, Donald Trump was also celebrating Purple Heart Day. And he had a big event at the Oval Office. He had a big event, lots of veterans, lots of military personnel. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth was there. And he honored those who not only went and fought in battle for us, not only served this country, but were injured in the line of duty.
This is also National Purple Heart Day, and we're here to honor and celebrate the unyielding patriotism and grit and devotion to America's Purple Heart veterans is great emotion and great love. The Purple Heart dates back to August 7th, 1782. That's a long time, when General George Washington awarded a heart-shaped purple cloth to 3 soldiers for outstanding gallantry and service in battle. This afternoon, we're joined by dozens of Purple Heart recipients and their families, and just as General Washington did 243 years ago, Today we give our everlasting thanks to you and your unbelievable families. We want to thank you very much for being here. It's my great honor.
Yeah. And that is, it's all of our honors to honor those people who fight and who are injured and, of course, worse in battle. And we thank them. We thank them for their service and, of course, for protecting our freedom so that we can, hang out on the internet all day and make jokes about crackhead Jasmine Crockett, among others. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth was there, and he was actually asked by, what's his name, Will Cain on Fox News, hey, so you're doing some stuff in the military, right? You're making it harder? Is that what you're doing?
You've make basic training great again. You're returning drill sergeants. Tell me, what is the shark attack? What are some of the things you're bringing back to basic training?
Well, it's the basic stuff that anyone who went through any form of basic training for decades understood is as a recruit, you were going into a crucible. You were going to be forged. You were going to be challenged. You were going to be scared, nervous, and anxious. And by coming through that, you were going to be forged an American warrior. A shark attack is when drill sergeants surround one particular enlistee, right? Creating a stressful situation that they have to figure out how to manage. Bed tossing inside barracks after you've had a long day doing, out on the range or walking patrol. This is basic stuff. This is not, beyond what's been done. This is a restoration. So we're going to do two things really well. We're going to do the complex stuff really well. We're at the 200-day mark. In the last 100 days, we did Operation Midnight Hammer with precision. That's complex stuff that only the U.S. military can do. But we're also going to do the basic stuff well. Will, if you start soft, you end soft. If you aren't strong from the beginning, you won't finish the fight properly. It starts at basic training. It starts at our military academies. We are going back to basics. Drill sergeants will be drill sergeants with knife hands who maintain good order and discipline and train up great recruits who will make great formations, just like we need military officers with that same rigorous discipline and background. So we're going back to basics, and it's bearing fruit.
All right, if you start soft, you end soft. Where have I heard that before? I'm sorry. It's Friday. Did I mention it's Friday? If you start soft, you end soft. And that is no joke. That is Secretary of Defense saying, look, yeah, we're making basic training great again. And I for one feel like basic training. I've never been through basic training myself. Had I had it to do all over again, I would have, because look, the worst thing, I love my life. I love all things about my life, but I will say this. The one negative about life is that you don't learn everything up front. It takes you decades to learn things. And there are things I learned later in life. I was like, oh man, if only I knew that earlier, I could have done this. And had I gone back, could I go back in time or do it all? There's a couple things that, not that I regret, but that maybe I would have tried because I didn't know about it. One of them would be military service. I didn't realize the benefit, you're not really sure what it means if you don't come from a military family until you're there. But everybody I know who's been in the military, it just seems like a better person because of it. Not that I'm a bad person. I could probably be better. It doesn't matter. Fact of the matter is, it's too late. But I always imagined basic training to be like the way they told us about it. One of the things they did to scare you is they tell you if you survive basic training, basic is hell week, they call it, or hell, I guess it's more than a week, and there were movies about basic training. Stripes. I don't know if you remember Stripes with Bill Murray and John Candy and John Landis. John Landis, is that what his name? Anyway, and it was all, and Sergeant Hulka, Army training, sir. I was a great movie. And yes, it was a comedy, and yeah, there was nudity in it, which is why I liked it. But also, it's supposed to scare you about joining the Army. Full Metal Jacket, forget about it. Only two things come out of there's just so many movies that were made to petrify you about, even Forrest Gump at times. Because you told me to, drill sergeant. All those movies made basic training just look awful. And I think that what happened was we had the softening of the military. We had the softening of basic training. Our troops and some of our recruits, but under Lloyd Austin, and Joe Biden were treated a little more fairly than they need to. And as a result, maybe they're not as hardcore as they could be. Well, I don't know if you've seen Pete Hegseth's tattoos, but he's looking for hardcore recruits to become hardcore men and women fighting in hardcore situations like Operation Midnight Hammer, which basically denuclearized Iran in about 20 minutes, which I feel is a successful attack. And Donald Trump, he's doing this everywhere, not just on Iran and in the military, but he's looking at DC, Washington DC. What is he doing? He is looking around and he's saying there's too much crime here. We're too gentle. We're too soft on crime. And when you start soft, you end soft. And that's why Big Balls got the snot kicked out of him. It's because they're soft on crime. And now, Stephen Miller, a little Miller time this Friday, this Cha-Ching Chat Friday, Stephen Miller says, we're taking action on D.C. We're taking back D.C. We're taking it to the streets.
The president has been very clear that he's going to take the action necessary to secure the city of Washington for the people who live here, for all the American people and all who visit here. It's our capital city. It is more violent than Baghdad. It is more violent than parts of Ethiopia, parts of many of the most dangerous places in the world. It's really shocking if you actually look at the graph that has been shown comparing parts of some of the most dangerous failed states in the world compared to D.C. D.C. is more violent, and so he's going to do what's necessary to make sure our nation's capital is safe for all Americans.
Yeah, we gave you the list yesterday. Nairobi, Kenya, all these places. Addis Ababa. That's always fun. Addis Ababa. Is it Addis Ababa or Addis Ababa? Or, I don't know, it doesn't matter. You know the place I'm talking about. Nairobi. Where is it? Bogota. All these places in Brasilia. All of the Havana. Safer. Baghdad even. Safer than Washington, D.C. That's deplorable. You want to talk about bad things? That's horrible. That's the worst news that I've heard in a long time. And again, it was because it was the attack on Big Balls that brought it really to the forefront. And now Donald Trump is like, another thing I got to take care of. Well, we're going to take care of it. Why? Because that's what Donald Trump does. It's what he's done in the first 200 days. It's what he's going to do in the next 165 days. Oh, yeah. And the next 3 years after that. It's incredible how much stuff Donald Trump is getting done. It's incredible how much stuff President Donald Trump is able to accomplish. It's incredible how much stuff his administration has. I mean, it's just here. In fact, here's Stephen Miller once again. Listen to this. He was asked about all of the things that they did. Listen to this. It goes on and on.
There have been so many achievements over the last 200 days. Where do we even begin? We have a trade deal, a groundbreaking, incredible, historic trade deal with the European Union, Korea, and Japan. 3 of the hardest trade deals to achieve really around the world. You have a complete rebalancing of our economic relationship with China. You have brought America's defense to the forefront with the largest investment in our national security, including the plan to construct the Golden Dome missile defense shield. You have the uprooting of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, across the whole federal government and the private sector. You have, of course, the largest package of tax cuts in American history, the full extension of the Trump tax cuts, plus Trump baby savings accounts. Plus, you have full expensing for manufacturing companies that bring their jobs back into America. No tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. You have us taking back our government from the rogue bureaucracy and from the deep state, and the exposing of all the crimes the deep state has committed against the American people. And you have the fact that our jobs market now is producing jobs for Americans. You have, for the first time in memory, all job growth going to American workers and no job growth going to illegal aliens.
Right.
No one can remember the last time that happened, especially over the last 4 years. If I had to pick one thing, if you really pushed me, and it's so much, I would say, of course, the fact that there have been 0 illegal aliens let into the country across the southern border the last 3 months in a row. You know, one of the biggest issues that was litigated in this campaign was about border security and sovereignty, and now for 3 straight months, 0 illegal aliens were let through the southern border. But above it all, I'll just end with this. It's the reawakening of the American spirit, putting our country first, our people first, our citizens first, in every interaction around the world. We have a president now who is defending with every ounce of his being the well-being of the American people.
By the way, I played that whole clip. I know it was like 2 minutes long, but I played that whole clip for a couple of reasons. Number one, I love listening to Stephen Miller just rattle off every single thing that Donald Trump and his administration have done in the last 200 days. But I love Rob's face. Rob Fitterty from Newsmax. He's sitting there they've got him on the split screen, and he's just sitting there like wondering how much longer. I mean, you asked the question, dude. You asked about some of the accomplishments, and that's it. I mean, if you ask somebody like Stephen Miller, hey, what are some of Donald Trump's accomplishments in this first 200 days? You might as well get a cup of coffee. You might as well wait. You're not going to say another. There's going to be nothing for you to say until commercial break, because that's going to be the. I mean, it's really hilarious. That was one of my favorite clips ever. But it's true. Those are all the we haven't even stopped. And now Donald Trump is. Here, this is the interesting thing, because what happens is Donald Trump's administration is very smart. They've plotted it out, right? They've got a map somewhere. They're not just doing this willy-nilly. They knew what they needed to start with. They knew when they needed to get things done. They timed the one big beautiful bill in the appropriate time. They put it right there by July 4th so that he could have a deadline and he could push to get it done. And he did that because if we get the one big beautiful bill done right before July 4th, then we know that we can have the economy rip-roaring and ready to go, and people can see their tax breaks and all that other stuff. We can see all of that right before the election, the midterm elections. And oh yeah, speaking of the midterm election, you know what we're going to need to do? We're going to need to redistrict a bunch of places like Texas. And that way we can guarantee that we won't lose the election to all of these gerrymandered districts all over the place, which is, I'm going to be honest with you, again, I think the timing of this is apropos, because what are we starting to see? We're starting to see other states now pop up, states even like Florida, that are saying, you know what? We've got some Democrat districts down south. We've got Democrat districts in Orlando that we should probably look at, that we should probably redistrict, because there's still remnants of gerrymandering everywhere, and we could probably make it more fair, especially with the census. Donald Trump calling the census, I mean, that is one of the most exciting, and I think that is one of the most important things that he's done, not just in the first 200 days, but in the last 2 days. And Stephen Miller tells you why.
How important is it that illegals are not counted as part of the next census?
Well, I mean, this is such a fundamental issue to our democracy. So think about this conversation we've been having, you've been covering, about apportionment and about gerrymandering and about representation in Congress. Mm-hmm. Democrats have stolen, depending upon how you count it, and no one really knows the number for sure, right? No one knows, right? But just being conservative, Democrats have stolen 20 to 30 House seats by counting illegal aliens in the census. I mean, just think about that for a second. They stole 20 or 30 House seats by counting illegal aliens in the census. And now you have Democrats talking about, oh, Republicans can't change their congressional maps? You have literally brought invaders into this country by the tens of millions to rig the results of the census and the apportionment of our congressional seats. And then on top of that, of course, you have a situation where even though Republicans won a landslide in the House popular vote, Democrats have so thoroughly rigged and gerrymandered and manipulated their districts beyond all recognition that Republicans only gained a 4-seat majority, despite winning a much smaller majority in the popular vote in 2010 and getting 63 seats. Remember the 2010 election? Yeah. A much smaller popular vote majority produced 63 seats. So, look, Democrats cheat. We all know Democrats cheat. We've all understood that. But they're counting of illegal aliens in the census. They have to be excluded. The Commerce Department, under the leadership of Howard Lutnick, is working on a plan now to make sure that we do, in fact, exclude illegal aliens from the census.
Yeah, and that is something that affects everybody. It affects every single... I mean, here's the thing. The census is going to change a lot of stuff. And it may be that after the census, red states may lose seats, but they're going to be Democrat seats. Why? Well, because the Democrats were the ones that stacked the deck. And it may be that some of these big areas, these big cities that have these representatives, I mean, if we lose seats, we're going to have to redistrict. And that's something that Ron DeSantis has said, we're already going to look at it after the census. We're going to look at all of these districts. We're going to look at the population. We're going to make sure that they are accurate, that we're not counting illegal immigrants. And even if you look at Florida, which is a solidly red state, I mean, here we go. What do we have here? We have, I think this is the most recent Yeah, this looks, let's see, this looks like the most recent map. 1, 2. Yeah, it's fairly good. But when you look at this, you can see up here, this isn't the most, I guess it is. You can see up here, you've got 30, there's 1 over here, which is where Jimmy Petronas is. 2, which I forget who's in 2. Kat Kamek over here in 3 in Ocala and, Tallahassee. Up here is our buddy Aaron Bean. Aaron Bean is up here in 4, and then 5, which is where I am right now. This will be my district here when I beat John Rutherford, and then anyway, so on and so forth. But when you zoom in, look at where all the blue is. You've got districts, and there's a blue district in Tampa, right? And it is not gerrymandering in the worst case scenario, but look at it, it's carved right out of the center of Tampa. When really there doesn't really need to be a need for that. We could take another one of these bigger districts and separate it. Orlando, same thing. Look at all the blue centered around Orlando and down here in Fort Lauderdale. So there's a lot of movement that could be made in Florida that could alter the map and give Republicans even more seats in Congress federally, even if we lose a seat in Florida. In Texas, man, Greg Abbott, old Governor Hot Wheels, as Jasmine Crockett would call him, he's fighting fire with a flamethrower. He got out there yesterday and said, look, you know what? In fact, here, let me pull this up. Paul Zizpula. I don't know who this is, but he writes, Governor Greg Abbott, we may make it 6 or 7 or 8 new seats. We're going to be adding on the Republican side. That's just in Texas. Every Republican-led state needs to do similarly with redistricting. So you've got Greg Abbott saying, look, we're not just looking to add 4 seats. We'll add 6. We'll add 8. We'll add as many as we can.
Sounds like maybe federal help at this point to do it. Like, how does this end?
The way it always does, and that is the Democrats always come back. It could be tomorrow, it could be next week, it could be next month. They're going to come back, or we'll be able to track them down. One way or the other, they're coming back, and it's going to end with these maps being passed. And, what I'm thinking now is if they don't start showing up, I may start expanding. We may make it 6 or 7 or 8 new seats we're going to be adding on the Republican side.
Yeah. The wall just got 10 feet higher.
Yeah, I mean, that is exactly right. If you're not going to look, we're going to take away 5 of your seats either way. You want it to be more? It can be more. In fact, I would put a big countdown clock and I would be like, look, every day you don't show up, we're going to add another seat in Congress. Every day you don't show up, we're going to make it harder for you to hold the House of Representatives. And that is exactly how you have to play with these people, because that's how these people have been playing for a very, very long time. They are not nice. They are not law-abiding. They cheat. They shirk the system. They do whatever they can to get ahead. And when you do the same thing on your side, they cry foul. And they scream and they yell. In fact, speaking of screaming and yelling, do I have Jamie Raskin? Oh, let's do Kathy Hochul first of all. Kathy Hochul in New York. So Kathy Hochul in New York is talking about how what's going on in Texas is unfair. She's talking about how in Texas it's wrong that the Republicans are that they're cheating people out of representation because they're redistricting. Listen to Kathy Hochul, what she did to this was what's her name? Elise Stefanik. She posted this on her X yesterday. Here's the before and after. This first part is from 2025.
If Republicans are willing to rewrite these rules to give themselves an advantage.
Okay, that was 2025. That was Kathy Hochul saying Republicans are willing to rewrite the rules to give themselves an advantage.
If Republicans are willing to rewrite these rules to give themselves an advantage.
All right, and then this is Elise Stefanik in 2022. Representative from New York talking to Maria Bartiromo.
276 days away from the congressional races in November, and the Democrats are now doing redistricting. What is the impact to New York?
This is the definition of gerrymandering. This is Albany Democrats and Washington Democrats putting their political, personal priorities over the will of the people. This is going to hurt all New Yorkers. What Democrats did was they outrageously gerrymandered multiple districts to protect their vulnerable Democrat incumbents because they know that the American people don't support their failed policies.
They have literally redrawn.
This is Kathy Hochul back in 2025 now, or in 2025 now.
They have literally redrawn 5 congressional districts.
New York Democrats.
Yeah, and then here's New York back in 2022.
Positioning themselves to be a political stronghold for the next decade. The state legislature just passed a new congressional redistricting map drawn up by Democrats after an independent redistricting committee failed to produce its own.
Congressional
This is today.
districts are never redrawn mid-decade as they are. But here they are.
Governor Kathy Hochul says there is no plan yet on what comes next now that the New York Court of Appeals tossed out the state's congressional and state Senate district maps, saying they were drawn to heavily favor Democrats in the election.
Yeah, all right, and you get it. This is back and forth. It's just hypocrisy after hypocrisy after hypocrisy, because that's what the Democrats do. That's all they've ever known, and that's all they ever will know. Is they and you know what the most interesting thing is too? Not interesting, but I guess sad, is the Democrats and some Republicans, but mostly the Democrats, they cheat and they game the system and they abuse their power so that they can stay in power. But they don't do it to benefit constituents. They don't do it to benefit anyone but themselves. They don't do it to make your life better. It'd be different if the Democrats were like, oh, we need to get into power and stay in power because we fight for the people. We fight for American ideals. We fight for the Constitution. You know what? We need to stay in power because the communists are taking over, and we need to make sure that this stays a capitalist society, a Republican, a democratic republic. We need to make sure that this country, as our founding fathers wanted it to be, we need to make sure that this country remains the home of the land of the free and the home of the brave, and that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are never compromised for anyone, and that we all have freedom of speech, and that we all have freedom to protect ourselves. No. They want to game the system and cheat and lie and use their power, abuse their power so they can stay in power to benefit themselves. That's all they're doing. They're just benefiting themselves. They just want to stay in power in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere so that they can make more money and do more dastardly things. Jamie Raskin pretends to be fighting for. Listen to Jamie Raskin. He's regurgitating the old fine people hoax that has been debunked over and over again, and then he accuses. Well, just listen.
They're trying to completely rewrite the history of January 6th, rewrite the history of the 2020 election, rewrite the history of the Civil War. You know, there are very fine people on both sides when there's an anti-Semitic riot in Charlottesville. It is the progressives who are standing up for history, who are standing up for facts, who are standing up for the truth.
No, they're not. They're standing up for their own bank accounts. They're standing up for their ability to tax you out the wazoo, take your tax money, give it to people in Ukraine, give it to people in the Green New Deal scam system, give it to all of their donors, buy weaponry with it, send the weapons over to God knows where, and then reap the rewards through political donations through their political action committees and also directly through stock purchases. I mean, the Sam Bankman-Fried thing, that was one of the biggest, really, I think should have been one of the biggest aha moments about how, and again, it's mostly Democrats, but also Republicans, how this whole system works in Washington, D.C. In fact, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who shall remain nameless. But if you know me, you know I only have here's the thing. I always say I was talking to a friend of mine, and it's usually the same person because I don't really have a lot of friends. I have three. There's my wife. There's three people I talk to on a regular basis, right? So it's usually one of those three people. Anyway, I was talking to this friend of mine, and they said, "Hey, can I donate some money to your campaign?" I said, "I would love for you to do that." And they said, "What do I get in it for return?" And I go, "Well, you get the satisfaction of knowing that you're helping me get to Congress." And then he goes, "No, but don't I get can't you make me some kind of special advisor or something like that?" And I go, "I mean, I could. How much?" How much money are you giving me? And he goes, "Well, just like a title I could put on my business card." I go, "You know what? Never mind. I don't need your money." He goes, "No, how about this? Why don't I give you a donation and then you hire me to do some consulting or something?" And I was like, "Dude," I go, "This is exactly what we're fighting. This is exactly what we're fighting in Washington. This is what happened with Sam Bankman-Fried. You give money, right? Let's say you're the Democrat Party. You give money to Ukraine. billions of dollars. Ukraine buys Bitcoin through Sam Bankman-Fried. Then Sam Bankman-Fried, with all of that money he got from Ukraine, buys Bitcoin, takes some money off the top, and then, then what does he do? He donates to all of the Democratic politicians and Republicans who voted to send money to Ukraine. So the money, and it's all your money, it's my money, it's the tax dollars. So what happens is the Democrats in Congress and a handful of Republicans say, we're going to give $350 billion to Ukraine. Ukraine buys the Bitcoin through Sam Bankman-Fried, and then Sam Bankman-Fried donates to the Democrats. What does that mean? Your tax dollars are going to fund re-election campaigns for Democrats. They figured out a way. This is what they're doing. This is how they launder the money. This is how they use and abuse their power. This is why they want to redistrict. This is why they gerrymander. They do it not for you, not to protect your rights, not to protect the Constitution. They do it to protect themselves and to protect their power and to protect their money. And not only that, but to steal your money. Gerrymandering is something the Democrats created so that they could, in the end, steal taxpayer dollars and use it for themselves. That's why they care about it. And now Donald Trump and Greg Abbott and Ron DeSantis and other governors all over the country are saying, look, you guys were gerrymandering the wrong way forever. We're now going to redraw the districts. We're going to take away the gerrymandering. We're going to write these districts the way they should be. And the way they should be is, they should just make sense. They shouldn't look the way that they do. They should look normal. In fact, I don't know if you saw this Pritzker on Colbert, but Stephen Colbert, I guess now that Stephen Colbert is maybe he's trying to make good or something like that. But JB the Hutt, aka JB Pritzker, governor of Illinois, where all these Democrats are hiding out. I meant to play this yesterday. I totally forgot. So he went on Stephen Colbert. Okay. JB the Hutt goes on Stephen Colbert and he tries to be funny. Stephen Colbert literally throws the congressional map for Illinois into his face. And it's the most ridiculous. Listen to this.
Easy districts in Illinois. Take a look at this. Look at 17 here. It does that. Then it comes up here and it sneaks around there and goes all the way up here and then goes right over there like that. And look at this one, kind of goes whoop up there. It's like the stinger on a scorpion down here. Is this common for all states to do?
Well, we handed it over to a kindergarten class and let them decide.
Okay, and that's the nonpartisan group that does this
Absolutely.
For you guys?
That's our independent commission, That is, look.
So because all states, to a certain extent, do this, why is what Texas doing particularly egregious in this case?
Well, here, every 10 years we do a census in this country, and right after the census, we redraw districts in every state. But what the Republicans are trying to do, and the Texas Republicans, frankly, at the behest of Donald Trump, are doing it mid-decade. That is extraordinarily rare.
That's an important point because I think he literally called them or wrote them and said, "Hey, I need 5 seats."
I mean, this is the egregious part. Not the fact that if you look at Illinois' districts 17 and 13, they just are thin lines that cut through other districts because they need more Democrat seats. That's not the egregious part of this. The egregious part that JB the Hutt says is so bad is that they're doing it mid-century or mid-decade rather. They're doing it mid-decade before the census even starts. That's BS. The reason they need and the census every 10 years, forget about it. Joe Biden and the Democrats are the reason these districts are being redrawn. Joe Biden and the Democrats are the reason that we want this new census, because in 4 years, and look, and I'll give it to him, right? In 10 years time, here, let me see if the overhead's working. If the overhead's working, I'm going to do a little bonus if you're watching the podcast and not just listening to it. We're going to, let me go to where's the overhead here? All right, here we go. So let me just show you this real quick, because this is fun. I like using, here we go. All right, so basically what happens is, let's get a 10-year span, all right? So we've got 10 years here, okay? This is 10 years. And in 10 years' time, in a regular in a regular 10-year span, you would have, when the Democrats aren't in charge, you would have some slow exponential growth of the population because, people are moving in, people are having babies. And over the course of like 10 years, you do see a little bit of growth. Maybe one year there's a lower birth rate or people move out of the country or God knows what. But eventually, over 10 years, maybe you get like, 10 to 20 million. I think the last census we added something like 15 million people. I think that's all it was. The last census we ordered, it went from like 315 million in the United States to like 331. I don't know, 16 million. Is that what it is? Anyway, so that's your typical 10-year time period. But now let's take a look at this particular 10-year time period, okay? You had 2020, all right, when the census came out and we realized we had 331 million people in this country. Well, then what happened next was Joe Biden comes into office, opens up the border, and all of a sudden, the population doesn't have this slow increase. It has a huge spike. And it continues for 4 years. And what happens is when Donald Trump comes back to office here after 4 years, I guess 4 years would be here somewhere, you've got 25 million illegals who, were counted in the census. And now Donald Trump's like, we just evicted all of them. We just got them out of here. And also they should never have been counted in the census in the first place. So we want to do a new census. We want to get these illegals that we deported out. We want to get the illegals that were counted out. And we want to make sure that we are just counting the American citizens, and then we'll redraw the districts. And if we lose seats, no problem. We'll redraw the ones that we have, and we'll make sure that we have only Republicans in those seats. That's what we're looking at. That's what we're fighting for. That's what's happening right now. And it is imperative that this thing happens. And it is going to happen, not just in Illinois and in Texas, but all over the place. Incidentally, by the way, I told you that. So gerrymandering, by the way, and this is important too. Gerrymandering is a term that dates back to a guy by the name of Elbridge Gerry. And Elbridge Gerry was the 5th vice president of the United States of America under James Madison. He was also the 9th governor of Massachusetts. And in Massachusetts, they were redrawing the district. And there was, this is how far this goes back. This goes back to the 1780 something. And Elbridge Gerry, he was the governor of Massachusetts, and he was given a map. And there was a very strange looking district, looked like a salamander. And the salamander district was created to do just this. And that was to make a district in Massachusetts that was going to go to one party no matter what, because it cut out the urban centers. And Elbridge Gerry said, this is wrong. But he voted for it anyway. He said, this is wrong. But he, as governor of Massachusetts, he signed off on it anyway. And one of the newspapers back then posted a photo of it and showed it. And they said, look, it looks like a salamander. We're going to call it the gerrymander. And that's how gerrymandering got its name. So and the problem here is, right, the reason, the real issue with that is, and the thing that Democrats to this day still do is, if you look at what happened with Elbridge Gerry and the first gerrymandered district, he knew it was wrong. He said, this is wrong. But he did it anyway. And that's really the modern Democrat Party. They know this stuff is wrong. But they do it anyway. And they do it so they can stay in power. We got some more cha-ching chats. Transplanted Native sent us a $5 super chat and said, happy birthday tomorrow, Patriot Lindsay. Patriot Lindsay, is it your birthday tomorrow? That is outstanding news. I am so excited. Great. Happy early birthday from all of us here at Marquez Saves the Republic. And Transplanted Native, thank you so much for that cha-ching chat to let us all know about it. Edna dropped this isn't a cha-ching chat. This is a super sticker, a beacon light with words, spoiler alert. Edna, thank you for that. We appreciate it. And we did get, it looks like we got one more cha-ching chat via the Rumble Rants. And let me pull that one up here. It's from Vondaful with a V. Vondaful wrote, Vondaful from Arizona, I would vote for you, and dropped a $10 cha-ching chat. Vondaful, Thank you so much. I would vote for you too. Listen, we've got so much that we're going to, I definitely this weekend, I know that I've been promising weekend. You know, there's times in our lives when there's no such thing as too much information. TMI, they call it. I don't believe in TMI, especially in this day and age. When you look at Donald Trump's last 200 days and everything that's been going on, when you look at how there's so much important stuff that happens over the weekend, when you look at how August, which used to be the slowest month of the year, now is becoming one of the busiest and most important, I believe that there's no such thing as too much information. And I've been really remiss in my weekend podcast, but I'm going to get back to that, I promise. And in the meantime, subscribe so you don't miss any. If you're watching on Spotify or listening on iTunes, if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, wherever you happen to be, please make sure that you subscribe to this channel, subscribe to whatever platform you're on, and set those notifications so you never miss a single episode. You never miss a beat. You never miss any of the information and the entertainment and the inspiration and the enlightenment and all the stuff that we bring you every single day. Because if you stay informed and if you stay inspired and if we all stick together, and if we come together every single day to teach each other what we know and who's attacking us and how to fight back, and to remember, it's like Sec Def Hegseth said, start soft, finish soft. We don't want to do either of those things. We want to start hard and we want to stay hard and we want to finish hard because we've got some hard fights to fight still. And we all need to stick together if we're going to fight, and save the Republic. Hey, by the way, don't forget, if it's payday where you are, it would be a great day for you to donate to markkayeforcongress.com if you haven't already. And also, don't forget, we do have that event coming up on January? What month am I in? August 18th. Monday, August 18th, which is 1 week from Monday. We have an event coming up in Jacksonville Beach at the Sneakers location. You can come and hang out. You can get one of these hats. You can get one of these yard signs that we have, 100 of the yard signs. You can meet other Katriots. You can hear me. I'll give a speech. We'll go over the agenda. We'll shake hands. We'll kiss babies. It's going to be really, probably I won't kiss babies because I don't think that's appropriate anymore. But if you would like to make a donation, there's a link in the description of this video. markkayeforcongress.com. That's the place to go. We need all the help we can possibly get to beat this Rhino Rutherford, who's the incumbent. And we would appreciate any and all of your help.